We're taking all the best old school wisdom and blending it with the top new school methods to bring you the optimal coaching strategies. This is the 80-20 Baseball Podcast with Coach Bo.
Welcome 80-20 Baseball community. Welcome to our weekly get-together where we continue on the path from new coaches to good coaches. And for those of you that have had success already as coaches, to go from good coaches to great coaches. Great coaches that make a big difference out there on the field, building up our players' skills, having them much better prepared for the games, for future baseball opportunities, and as important as anything, preparing them for life through the fun sport of baseball. In this week's episode, we're going to talk about the catcher's primary responsibilities/priorities. We're going to discuss something coaches we need to remember to do during every game and how this should be a priority of ours. Before we jump into that, quick shout out to Lake Mary Little League out of Florida, winning the Little League World Series in walk-off fashion on a bunt. Congrats to the team from Lake Mary, Florida. Congrats to all the Little League teams that had successful years. Now remember, one team, one all-star team, wins the Little League World Series. Only one. There are thousands and thousands of Little League teams, in this case all-star Little League teams, that don't win. And that's why it's so important to make sure that we do win by building up our players into better people, using sports, using baseball in this case, because that's something that is guaranteed to make for a better life for all of our players and also a better childhood to look back on, better experiences that will forever be there for our kids to look back on in a positive way. Now, I'm going to share out a few things that I was able to dig up that helped the Lake Mary Little League team have success. Of course, if you're going to win for that long of a stretch, you're going to get some bounces your way. You're going to get some calls your way. Things are going to work out on that front, but you have to be doing a lot of things right. Now, I want to add this first. I had my annual get-together with the guys I grew up with, grade school buddies, high school buddies, but more than anything, these were guys that I connected with in Little League. Some, when my age was still a single-digit number. We get together every year. We do a fantasy football draft. We get the taco truck, and we do a wiffle ball World Series. Well, one of the guys had to leave early because his kid was going to run the bases between innings at the Angels game over at Angel Stadium. So we had a substitute, a guy we all have known forever. In fact, his brother was on my 9-year-old baseball team, and my dad was the coach. And that team went, 19-1, won first place. And we were sitting around talking about that, and he kept bringing up how his dad and how his older brother, talking about how much fun they had that season and how much fun they had playing for my dad, who won his fair share of games as a coach. But more importantly, every time I come across guys who I played Little League with or who were on my dad's teams, they always mention how much fun my dad was to play for, how much he made the game fun, how much they enjoyed it, and they have these genuinely big smiles when they talk about their experience. So that was awesome to hear. Hadn't seen this guy in 20 years, and he shows up, and just really great to see, and it's great to hear what he said 3.5 decades later about their memories of playing for my dad's Little League team. So coaches, sometimes we don't hear these things. We may coach for 2 years, 5 years, 8 years. We're not always going to hear about the positive things that come about because of our coaching, but it's there and it will be there. Now, I'm going to add a few things about this wiffle ball game World Series that I think are cool. One, we allow peggies. Got to have peggies. If it's a close call, we play flip cup. If you know, you know. It's the ultimate sandlot. In fact, the field over the years, it looks a lot more like the Sandlot field, and it's just a great time. So, speaking of Little League, I was able to dig up a little stuff on Lake Mary Little League, the team that won the Little League World Series. Now, they won it on a bunt. Now, if you watch that bunt closely, the bunt was to first base, but it was a late show bunt, what I call a late show. A late show is a bunt that the hitter is trying to turn into a base hit. For the most part, the hitter is trying to get a base hit. There was a runner on second base. I believe there were no outs. Now, this is a good time to bunt, especially at the youth baseball level, because of the chances of things going wrong for the defense like it did for the Chinese Taipei team. The ball was picked up and thrown into right field. Nobody was covering first, and the runner from second scored. I saw a lot of stuff on X. A lot of coaches that I follow were talking about, hey, look, bunts work. Two things to keep in mind. Youth baseball and bunting is a lot different than college baseball, even good high school baseball and pro level bunting. Also, they didn't win just on that bunt. There was 1,000 things they did right over the course of the last month or so that helped them win. The final play happened to be a bunt. I'm definitely not against bunts. I've told y'all, my players are taught to look at that third baseman, or if they're really skilled bunters, bunting it to the first base side. If that first baseman and second baseman are playing in no man's land, maybe you got a left-handed pitcher that's fallen off to the third base side of the mound, and they got some speed, then yeah, dropping a bunt down to the first base side. I'm a big fan of that. If those opportunities are there, especially at the youth baseball level, I want them to take advantage of that. I'm a huge fan of at the professional level when the shifts are happening and the third base area is vacated. If I'm a manager of the major league teams, that's an automatic bunt. Well, maybe not for Aaron Judge or Shotani, but everybody else, automatic bunt. Now, here's the thing about the bunt that I really liked was that it was down the line. It wasn't right back to the pitcher. When I practice bunts with my teams, I challenge them big time to get the ball, of course, in fair territory, but tight to the line, and also having them show their bunt as late as possible. If you can get kids to show their bunt as late as possible while consistently getting the ball right down the line or within a few feet of the line, if they got average speed and definitely above average speed, hitters are going to get a lot of hits. And also it sets up the defense for when the hitters are swinging away. It draws them in. It brings in that third baseman. It might bring in that first baseman. That makes getting hits a lot easier. So I like the bunt. I just think it's overrated by a lot of people, a lot of old school coaches who grew up just watching a lot of bunting, want to dismiss the math behind it when it comes to scoring runs. But I also think there's been an overcorrection when it comes to not bunting. Like most things in life, we want to avoid the far ends of whatever spectrum we're talking about. Now, for you more advanced youth baseball teams where the defenses are good, the players, the third baseman, the pitchers, the first baseman can make the plays consistently on the bunts, I recommend greatly prioritizing bunting a player over from first to second if that's a better opportunity to move them over when compared to stealing second base. When there's a runner only on second base, that runner doesn't have to go anywhere. Of course, they're not forced to run to third base if the ball is put in play. So they have options. It's also much more challenging to turn a double play when there's only a runner at second base. And in that situation, usually poor base running is needed. The runner at second's already in scoring position. Now, there were no outs, so that's a good time to move them over. Say they do get the out, you have 2 outs to get them in, but I would say let's use 3 outs to drive them in. Let's use 3 outs to drive them in rather than 2 outs to drive them in. For the most part, all things being equal, especially for the junior high age players, I would prefer leaving my runner at second and using 3 outs to drive them in versus moving them over to third and using 2 outs to drive them in. There are quite a few more ways, as most of you know, to score from third base than there are from second. Every situation is going to be different. Each team's going to be different. The catcher, the pitcher on the other team, that makes a big difference. The infield, the hitter, their ability to bunt, their speed, the speed at second, how many outs, is there a runner at first and second or just second? A lot of factors there. You know, how well the pitcher's pitching that day, that's a big one. The pitcher's pitching really well, you bunt them over, right? You bunt them over and hope one of your next guys can put it past the drawn-in infield or get it to the outfield and score on a sac fly or a hit. So I liked it. I just think there's things to consider. It shouldn't just be like, oh, we're never bunting, and it shouldn't be, well, we're going to bunt every time the old school baseball book says to bunt. Read the situation, but all your players should be learning how to bunt. In my opinion, bunting for base hits. Start with the third base side, and once they dial that in, move to the first base side. And that should be something that's worked on during every batting practice. So the team from Lake Mary, the team had some experience. From what I understand, last year, they fell short in the Southeast Regional Final. So they had some experience. That's important, right? You coaches are showing up here to build off of my experiences and all the experiences behind the information that we talk about here on this podcast. So experience is big. Player improvement. For example, there was a player that added some power along with plate discipline while hitting. So this is one of their main players in the offseason, focused on hitting the ball harder, combined with plate discipline and consistency with the hitting approach. Swing at good pitches, hit line drives. Do that consistently till the cows come home. Team cohesion, from what I understand, had good team cohesion. They got along, good team culture. They connected together well. They had good community support. The city of Lake Mary really rallied and supported. That's what we're doing as parents, as coaches. We're supporting our players. And resilience. So throughout the tournament, Lake Mary showed an ability to overcome deficits and win close games. suggesting they were mentally prepared for high-pressure situations. If y'all get a chance, the coach gives a really good in-game pep talk to his team. You can look it up on YouTube, Lake Mary Coach Pep Talk or Team Talk. It's a really good one, worth the 2-minute listen. So congrats to Lake Mary. From what I understand, they're the first Florida team to win the Little League World Series. Speaking of playing great baseball, great defensive baseball starts with the catching position. Well, it starts with the pitcher, but the pitcher, in my opinion, is on offense. They start with the ball. Like a quarterback has the ball, they're on offense. The point guard has the ball in basketball, they're on offense. If a midfielder is dribbling the ball towards the opponent's goal in soccer, that's considered being on offense. So I consider pitching being on offense. And it's actually a good mindset to instill in pitchers. Hey, you're on offense. You got the ball. You dictate. But with regard to the defensive positions, once the pitch is made, it starts with good catching. When you go to coach up your catchers, keep in mind that the primary responsibility for catchers is A, to provide a good, consistent target, and then B, catch or block the ball. Now, this may sound obvious, and it is, but what happens is we go out to coach our catchers and we want to jump right to framing and throwing out base runners, jumping out from behind the plate to make a play on a bunt. While, of course, those have their place, the primary role, and this is really important to teach from a young age, especially when we don't want to overwhelm our players with a bunch of stuff. We want them to give a really good target. Good meaning in the right spot, not too low, not too high. As the pitchers improve, are we going in and out? Are we up and down? But at the lower levels, is it a good, wide open, big target that's set early in the optimal place? Typically for your 9U, your 8U, your 10U, those pitchers that are a little newer to pitching, don't have a ton of experience or don't have secondary pitches, or maybe they have some control issues, really setting it up just above the knees, right down the middle, setting it up early and often. Of course, as pitchers get more experienced and better, that target can move around according to the way you want to attack the hitters or what's working for the pitcher that day, etc. But things like framing, throwing runners out, making a play on a bunt, those are secondary to catching the ball or blocking the ball, to giving a good target and catching or blocking the ball. So the reps that we give to a youth baseball catcher should not be an equal ratio when it comes to catching and blocking the ball compared to how many times we're having them practice throwing the ball down to second or third or first or hopping out, fielding a bunt, or how much time we're spending on framing. They should just get a ton of reps, some easy, some challenging, on catching and blocking the ball. And once that's dialed in, which may take a long time, then move on to framing. And when it comes to throwing out runners and fielding bunts, those are things that should be added in early, but just in small doses. Microdose those things and do some heavy dosing of catching the ball and blocking the ball with the preset good target. Now, moving to part 2, coaches, remember that coaching should be enjoyable. There should be joy that comes from coaching. And one way to keep the enjoyment level high and the level of joy that we have and the team has at a higher level is to not let the stress and anxiety overshadow this or overtake our mission of having a fun, enjoyable time while we're out there coaching. Enjoy the moment and prioritize the experience over perfection. Enjoy each moment, enjoy the moment, and prioritize the experience over perfection. By the way, when we go into a game or even practice or a drill, expect imperfection. Coaches that act surprised when their team or a player makes a mistake. There is a really strong correlation between coaches that overreact when their teams make a mistake or one of their players makes a mistake. There's a really strong correlation between the level of the reaction and how much experience they have as a coach. And also you could say there's a correlation between the reaction, whether it's an overreaction or an ideal reaction to a mistake their team makes, and their priorities and their mindset as a coach. Coaches that have been coaching a long time, and this is something that young coaches can do, newer coaches can do right off the bat, pardon the pun, and that is prioritize the experience over perfection. Know your team is going to mess up. Players are going to mess up. They're going to make an error or 2 or 3 or 10, hopefully not 10, but let's not make an error as adults. The kids make an error. They're young. Maybe they're learning the game. Definitely if it's a physical error, let's not compound that by a much worse error. And that's our unhealthy reaction, overreaction to that. One way to help with this is stay in the moment, move to the next pitch, move to the next play, coach it up a little and move on, or just don't say anything for about 30 seconds or a minute That'll help stabilize our emotions a little and then respond. But it's very important to not let the stress and anxiety of coaching overshadow our experience, our enjoyment of coaching, because it's going to be something that comes and goes quickly, unless you plan on coaching for 30 years, but most coaches don't. It's going to be a brief period of your life. Enjoy the experience, prioritize the experience of being out on the field, the enjoyment of being out on the field over trying to have your team be perfect. And the side benefit of that, which is a huge benefit, or your players are going to feed off that. My dad did this so well over the years as a Little League coach. And look, 3.5 decades later, I'm hearing from a guy that his family, his older brother played for my dad, and he's saying he remembers that experience. He remembers that enjoyment that they had many moons ago. So, priorities for catching, priorities for coaching. Big shout out to Lake Mary Little League out of Florida winning the Little League World Series. Next week, we're going to talk about the 80-20 rule in a different way, but a very helpful way. It's a different viewpoint of the 80-20 rule that I've never heard anywhere else. I'm not saying I was the originator of this thought by any means, but I haven't heard it anywhere else. It just came to me as I was thinking about the 80-20 rule a few weeks back. I kind of had this epiphany on it, and I want to share with you. And this is going to help us when we're training our players and running our practices. And it's a way to better prioritize our time, our training time, our coaching time, our players' time. And this is a viewpoint that I want to share with you, kind of that operating system type of paradigm that I think can help us be better coaches. So if you haven't already, go over to 8020baseball.com, get that free drill design guide. That'll give you the foundation of what you need to do or what ingredients, components go into a great drill. There's a dozen articles over there, 14 videos over there, including a couple really good videos that break down the hitting approach, so you can see examples of that to go along with that hitting approach article. But a bunch of stuff over there to really jumpstart your coaching. When I say this is youth baseball coaching, what I'm trying to do is have you be the best youth baseball coaches you can be. So while I'm not throwing stuff out there and dumbing anything down, I'm trying to give you the most advanced version of youth baseball coaching that I can, that fits within the time constraints of youth baseball and the level of experience of youth baseball players. So keep that in mind. Always trying to push the sophistication needle as much as possible while making sure that it fits perfectly for all of us youth baseball coaches. All right, everyone, love being here each week. Send me your emails. Send me your thoughts. Tell me about your coaching journey. Email me, coachbo@8020baseball.com, if there's something you want me to cover on this podcast. You can also reach me using the contact page at 8020baseball.com. Hope you all have a wonderful week. Got a 3-day weekend coming up. Let's take care of ourselves, especially our health, so we can be there and be great for our families, be there for our close friends, and we can be the best coaches that we can be. Y'all take care. Until next week, adios.
This has been the 80-20 Baseball Masterclass. Take it to the field.